Black metal is one of the most popular genres amongst metalheads. However, older Gen X metalheads like myself sometimes wonder how people can listen to music that, on the surface, sounds like static noise and incomprehensible screaming. Apparently, it's a genre you have to ease into. So why am I mentioning this in a review of the new Cradle of Filth album? Because I believe this band is a great starting point for anyone wanting to understand black metal. If you jump right into old school bands like Mayhem or Dark Throne, it might be overwhelming. But Cradle of Filth incorporates elements of traditional heavy metal, gothic metal, and even progressive rock style keyboards, and it makes their music a little more accessible. This new album would be a great introduction if you've never listened to Cradle of Filth before, or if you are new to black metal. So now it's time for a brief history of Cradle of Filth, and then I'll jump right into the official review. This band formed in 1991 in Suffolk, England. They've gone through numerous lineup changes over the years. The band is led by founding member and vocalist Dani Filth, hence the name Cradle of Filth. Their debut album, The Principle of Evil Made Flesh, was released in 1994. The band's most popular era was from the late 90s to the mid-2000s, during which their sound evolved pretty significantly. The most recent album before this was Existence Is Futile from 2021. At the time, my channel was still fairly new, but I reviewed that album and I enjoyed it a lot, even though back then I wasn't a big fan of black metal. It wasn't a genre I fully understood back then. However, for some reason, Existence Is Futile really clicked with me back then. So now that I got that out of the way, let me talk about their latest album, The Screaming of the Valkyries. This is the band's 14th studio album, released on March 21st, 2025 through Napalm Records. It was produced, engineered, mixed, and mastered by Scott Atkins. The album continues their signature blend of symphonic and black metal. It features 9 tracks, a 56-minute runtime, and most songs are between 5 and 7 minutes long. The cover artwork was designed by an artist whose name is Roberto Diaz. Critics have generally praised the album. Most of them agree that it stays true to the band's established style. Some reviews were more positive than others, and some critics felt some songs weren't that memorable. On average, the album received a 3 out of 5 rating from critics. But let's see how it holds up and what my score is going to be as I go through the tracks. The opening track is called To Live Deliciously. The song starts off with some creepy sounds. It sounds like the score from an old horror movie. It goes into some cool thrash metal style guitar riffs. They add in some elements of traditional black metal, and Dani Filth's vocals still sound very evil. His vocals might be hard to take at first, but he is also someone you can understand if you listen to him. The song has lots of melodic leads that go along with the thrashy guitar riffs, and they are complemented with these eerie keyboards that are played in the background. I thought it was a good song to kick off the album because it has a sound that's very representative of what you're going to get on this album. After this is a song called Demagoguery. This one has a really creepy intro. Sounds like one of those old electric pianos that plays by itself that you would find in an old dungeon. The song continues with some of that mid-paced thrashing. The song kind of has the best of both worlds because it has the evil sound of traditional black metal mixed with the catchiness of a traditional metal song, or something that a metalhead like me would like because it's a little more accessible. The song has a nice level of mixing. I think the levels of the guitars and the keyboards are where they should be. Neither of them overpower the other. There's also those creepy interludes where Dani Filth does these whispery types of vocals. And after this is a very melodic guitar solo with elements of classical music. And that's another thing I like about this band. After this is a song called The Trinity of Shadows. This one's a little heavier, it's faster, it's darker. Kind of reminds me of some of that old Merciful Fate. But as the song moves on, it gets a little more melodic and easier to listen to. I would even say the song is kind of catchy as it has some backing vocals used in the chorus. It's also a really cool bass guitar section that comes in right around the middle of the song, and the song also has that traditional black metal style of guitar playing. I'm on track number 4. It's called Non Hominis Moriar. And if you watched my last review, I said that bands like to put ballads as track number 4 sometimes, but this was not really a ballad. It was more on the slower side. We hear the female vocals for the first time on this album, which I think is a very important part of the band's sound. The song was not too bad. It was one of the more gothic sounding tracks as opposed to the more extreme sound of the first 3 tracks. I thought it was a good idea to put this track right here. It was one of the more laid back ones. But with that being said, it still had some black metal elements like the tremolo pick guitar riffs and other components usually heard in black metal. I'm about halfway through the album. I'm on track number 5. The song is called White Hellbore. If you remember, I said track 4 was easy listening. Well, this is more like traditional black metal, but not the most black metal sounding song on the album. That will come a little later. This one makes use of the female vocals, which is a good thing. Has more of that traditional black metal riffing. The song is also complemented with some spooky keyboard sounds and some thrash metal style guitar riffing. The end of the song had some of the most extreme moments with some killer blast beats. As we move on towards the end of the album, I'm on track number 6. It's called You Are My Nautilus. The song has more of a dense sound, reminds me more of atmospheric black metal, but in addition to that, it has some pretty cool heavy metal style guitar riffs. Kind of reminded me a little of Iron Maiden. Let me also say this features some of the best drumming on the album, with one part of the song being dedicated to just isolated drums and keyboards. I read one comment comparing some of the guitar riffs to the band Dissection, which is another melodic black metal band that you should ease into someday if you want to explore the genre. There are also some heavy moments with some blast beats as well. There are 3 more songs on the album, and track 7 is Malignant Perfection. This brings back some of that spooky piano and goes into more of a gothic melody with more of those whispery vocals. So in other words, it has more of a keyboard-oriented sound, and it's one of the more melodic sounding tracks. This also has some of those black metal style tremolo picked guitar riffs. And this is the first time you hear those female vocals where she sounds like Elvira, Princess of the Dark, where she does those spoken vocals. I remember hearing them on the last album as well. I thought the album probably needed more of those, but I guess they used them sparingly. And I mentioned before how one of the songs had these very traditional black metal sounds. Well, there was part of this song that just goes full old school black metal with screams and blast beats and tremolo picking. So it kind of eases you into that as we're almost towards the end of the album. But despite the heaviness, it also has lots of melodic lead guitar playing. So it's a very good track. There are 2 more songs in the album. Track number 8 is called Ex Sanguine Draculae. This one has more of an atmospheric black metal sound. They seem to be adding more traditional elements of black metal as the album progresses, as I'm hearing more of that on the second half of the album. The song in particular has a lot of that. The song has some of those thrashier guitar riffs and audible bass guitar that I had been talking about before. This was also one of the longer songs, so it had a lot of different complex arrangements. Now I'm on the last song of the album. It's called When Misery Was a Stranger. And it sounds very big in scale. It reminded me more of the type of songs that were on the front half of the album, as they were a little more gothic sounding with guitar riffs, closer to thrash metal. So it was almost like the album came full circle. It was another one of those songs that was a little slower moving, and the guitars were complemented very well with the keyboards. This track also has those female vocals, which was more clean singing and has some pretty cool bass guitar rhythms. After about 4 minutes, it goes into an interlude with softer melodies and spoken vocals that was pretty cool. And it goes right into the guitar solo. Overall, pretty cool song to end the album. So in conclusion, I thought it was a solid album. I've also not done a deep dive into older albums, so I can't really compare it to the others, but I think it's on par with their last album. I feel this band is consistent, and really any of their albums would be a good place to start. I've only listened to this band on shuffle, but I need to devote some time to listen to the full albums. But as for this album, I think it's solid. Doesn't have any really great songs, but doesn't have any weak songs. Just a very consistent album from start to finish. So for that reason, I think it's a solid 8 out of 10. Something I'll go back to. Maybe I will do a deep dive and ranking eventually, but for now, that is what my score is. If you're interested in checking out my review of the previous album from 2021, Existence is Futile, I will stick that right here. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Please give the video a like. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.